No civilization ever collapsed because it ran out of rules. They collapsed because the rules tried to stop the flow. Water does not argue. It does not negotiate. It does not need permission. It moves. It finds the lowest resistance, the smallest crack, the forgotten edge. When blocked, it pools. When constrained, it pressures. When ignored, it floods. And when given space, it sustains everything it touches. Money behaves the same way. For most of human history, value moved freely through trade, trust, and shared survival. Grain became currency. Salt became power. Gold became memory, not because someone declared it so, but because people agreed it worked. Flow created legitimacy, not authority. Then came the dams, borders, banks, ledgers, titles, permissions, intermediaries. Structures built not to help water move, but to decide who controls the valve. At first, dams feel safe. They promise stability, predictability, protection from chaos. They convince people that stillness is strength, but still water rots. Every system that prioritizes control over circulation eventually poisons itself. The signs are always the same: stagnation, inequality, pressure buildup, and sudden collapse that no one claims responsibility for. This is not ideology, it is physics. The mistake we keep repeating humans: mistake ownership for authority. We draw lines on maps and call them borders. We stamp paper and call it money. We write rules and call them law. But none of those things move value. People do. Time does, energy does, flow does. The moment a system forgets that its purpose is to facilitate movement, it becomes a mechanism of friction. And friction, when monetized, becomes power. Fees, delays, gatekeeping, complexity disguised as safety. The modern financial world did not become broken overnight. It became over-engineered, layer upon layer of abstraction, until the average person no longer understands what they own, where it is, or who truly controls it. When people lose visibility, they lose agency. When they lose agency, they accept dependency. When dependency becomes normalized, control no longer needs force. It only needs silence. Why water terrifies power. Water cannot be centralized forever. You can dam a river, but only temporarily. You can redirect it, but never permanently. You can tax it, but only where it surfaces. Every empire that attempted total control over flow eventually learned the same lesson. Pressure always finds release. This is why decentralized systems are not new. They are ancient. Trade routes, merchant networks, informal economies, black markets, barter systems, underground exchanges. Whenever authority overreaches, water goes underground. The mistake modern systems made was believing digitization meant domination, that converting value into numbers meant it could be frozen, reversed, or confiscated without consequence. But water doesn't care about formats. It cares about access. Flow is not freedom, it is reality. This book is not about rebellion. It is not about overthrowing institutions. It is not about replacing one ideology with another. It is about seeing clearly. Money is not moral. Systems are not evil. Power is not inherently corrupt. But anything that blocks flow without accountability will eventually collapse under its own weight. The question is not whether change is coming. The question is whether you will recognize it as flow or mistake it for chaos. A different way to look at money. What if money was not something to hoard, but something to circulate? What if value was measured not by accumulation, but by optionality? What if security came not from walls, but from mobility? Water does not ask for loyalty. It rewards adaptability. Those who learn to move with it survive droughts, floods, and storms. Those who try to command it are eventually erased by it. This is the law of water, not a manifesto. Every dam begins with good intentions. No one sets out to stop a river out of malice. They do it to survive, to protect crops, to prevent floods, to bring order to chaos. Early dams were not tools of domination. They were tools of coordination. At first, the problem is not that humans centralize value. The problem is why they keep doing it, even after it stops serving them. Fear is the first architect. Before there were banks, there was scarcity. Before scarcity, there was memory. Humans remember droughts, famines, winters that never seem to end. Entire generations shaped by what happened when the flow stopped. That memory became instinct, and instinct became policy. Store it, guard it, control it. Centralization feels like safety because it promises predictability, a reservoir instead of a gamble, a vault instead of trust, a ledger instead of memory. When value is centralized, people believe chaos can be negotiated with rules. But fear does not design resilient systems. It designs rigid ones. And rigidity does not survive pressure, from coordination to control. At small scales, centralization works. A village granary prevents starvation. A shared treasury funds defense. A common currency simplifies trade. These systems succeed because the distance between decision and consequence is short. The stewards are visible. Abuse is difficult to hide, but scale changes everything. As populations grow, so does abstraction. Authority moves farther from reality. Decisions are made by people who never touch the water, only the dials that claim to control it. What began as coordination quietly becomes control. Rules stop serving flow and start serving hierarchy. Access becomes permission, permission becomes leverage, and leverage becomes power. Why power always centralizes power does not trust movement. Flow threatens predictability. Predictability threatens authority. The more centralized a system becomes, the more it fears anything it cannot fully see or command. This is why institutions crave transparency from individuals, but resist transparency themselves. It is not hypocrisy. It is survival instinct. A dam builder believes that if they release too much water, everything downstream will unravel. They convince themselves that restriction equals responsibility. But water does not disappear when it is blocked. It accumulates. The illusion of stability, centralized systems sell stability by slowing everything down. Processing times, settlement delays, approval layers, compliance checks. Each layer is framed as protection. In reality, it is friction, monetized friction. Friction creates revenue. Revenue funds authority. Authority justifies more friction. This loop becomes self-reinforcing until the system forgets its original purpose entirely. At that point, the dam no longer exists to manage water. It exists to justify itself. Still, water looks calm on the surface. Underneath, pressure builds. Why people accept the dams? Most people do not support centralized systems because they love control. They support them because they fear uncertainty more than dependence. Predictable loss feels safer than unpredictable freedom. A guaranteed paycheck, even if shrinking, feels safer than variable opportunity. A controlled system, even if unfair, feels safer than navigating flow alone. Dams exploit this psychology. They promise protection from floods while quietly charging rent for access to water. And as long as the water trickles, most people never question the structure upstream. When dams do not fail gradually. They fail catastrophically. Cracks are ignored because the surface looks calm. Warnings are dismissed because the system has worked before. Those in control delay action because releasing pressure threatens their authority. Then one day the flow decides for them. History is full of these moments. Currency collapses, banks freeze withdrawals, markets halt trading, trust evaporates overnight. People call these events crises. They are not. They are corrections. The pattern that never changes. Centralize, stabilize, extract, stagnate, collapse, reset. Every civilization repeats this cycle because the impulse to control flow is older than reason. Humans fear water when they forget how to move with it. This book is not about blaming the dam builders. They are not villains. They are responding to the same fear every generation inherits. But fear cannot be allowed to architect the future forever. The question that matters. The question is not whether dams will exist. They always will. The question is whether you understand when you are living upstream, downstream, or trapped behind one. Because once you recognize the structure, you can decide how much dependence you are willing to accept and how much flow you want back in your life. The water's already moving. The only question is whether you are watching it or standing in its way.